Well, hi guys and girls, Emma again. Welcome back to the spare room. This is the next part of this little tool hold down clamp video. Previously we've got these all pretty much the same. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 little T-nuts, a little bit fancy with a cutout on them. What we need to do is make some jaws, and I've got a piece of this phosphor bronze which is hard and slippery and pretty metal. It's a nice colour, and we're going to cut 4 little jaws out to go in here. Looking at the side of them here, they've got a 15-degree angle there to match that, and they've got a little bit of angle here, about 5 degrees for bite. This screw is on an angle the same as this one so that it screws in, and looking at the top you can see there's got a counter bore in it, so pretty straightforward. There's actually, I've written this down as 5/16, but whatever this cleans up to, this is 5/16 stock and it needs a little bit off it. And 5/8 wide, which is the same width as the T that way, so that's just so that it looks nice. It doesn't matter very much, but we'll try and get them all the same. They're about 660 long, which is where they want to be, so that there's enough length in them here to bite in nicely to whatever they're up against. So this is sort of how that's going to fit in there. And I've gone and cut a couple of bits off, I hacksawed a couple of bits off. The best way probably to square them up is to do them both at once. I'm going to square one face up because this has got 2 hacksaw cuts in the second piece. This one's pretty sweet really. I'm going to live with that. But what I'm going to do is set these up in the shaper, square them off, turn them over and set them down on a parallel and square them off again, and then we'll cut them to length and we'll set them all up on end and square them off again till they're the right length, and we should have 4 bits the same at the end of it. So what I've done is squared these up all the way around. I've made these sides parallel, and then I've made this end square. While I've still got the long side there, and much easier to set up, I've just used a Z-square on a ruler and made sure that this was nice and square to the jaw, and put a toolmaker's clamp on when I've cleaned that up, and turned it over and set it up again flat on the bottom. So what we should have now is 4 really square, a cube with 6 square sides. I guess that's what we've got now. That should be plenty good enough. I've done that rather than do them all at once when they're all cut up, because the longer side is a much more accurate and reliable way to set these up square. Now all I've got to do when I've cut the other end is put them all in the vise, nicely grounded on the bottom there, and clean them all up, and they should all be square. So let's have a look. Of course, the way to make sure they're all square is to turn them end for end, and that's when you discover that they're not quite. So best to mess around with them. They're not far out, but it's enough to be able to see it, and best to mess around with them and get them right while they're still in one block like this. It's sort of hardly enough out there to worry it, but I'm just going to probably mess around again and dress them up a bit and see if we can get them somewhere closer, and then I'll cut them in half and we'll... So hopefully you can see that. After a bit of messing around, I've managed to get these square. I've got two little blocks there, and they're the square. You can, if you put them together that way, you can't see a line there. They're nice and parallel, and if you put them together that way, they're pretty much the same. So I'm pretty happy with that. I've squared the ends up. I've made these parallel, and then I've squared these ends up. It's much easier to get the long distance upright in the vise to square these up than it is to get the short distance. And when all these ends are right, all I'm going to need to do when I've cut them in the middle is to line them all up nice and flat. Is to line them all up nice and flat on the vise and take the top off, and they should all be nice and square. So that's the theory. It's a bit of progress. Next job is to cut them in half, mark them nicely and cut them in half and trim them all down to length, and start thinking about putting some angles on them. Anyway, we ended up with 4 of these little blocks. They're all the same size and they're all nice and square. I've blued them and I've marked it the right amount that I think. I'm hoping I've got this calculated right. But I've marked them the right distance so that if I put a 15-degree hole through here and a 15-degree slope on the back, they should just touch nicely. They should just touch nicely on the back and run up and down, hopefully. That's the idea. However, I've run into a slag. I set one up here in the vise and I was just going to drill them and counterbore them. And I thought I had a counterbore with a cutter on it suitable for this bolt, but I don't. I've got a 4mm one and a 6mm one. The 6mm one's way too big. The 4mm one's way too small. Now I've got another one that's about 3/16, I think, which has a much smaller head on it, so that's not much good either. I think it's for a cheesehead screw. So that's not going to work. I could make a counterbore and just make a D-bit with a round spigot left on the end. And that would probably work if we were drilling into it flat, but we're not. We're on an angle, so it's sort of cutting on one side all the time. I don't like that very much. I've got a feeling that it's going to walk, and you're going to end up with a very ugly hole. So I'm not going to do that. What I think I'll do is use this. Take a bit of care and set this up. It's quite a good little device for drilling anyway, and that sort of thing. It's not got a lot of really reliable feed up and down, and if you loosen it off enough so that it does feed up and down, you find that it chatters. But it's got a pretty decent little vise on it, and it's square to the base. So what I think I'm going to do is set this up on the lathe, set these in here on the right angle, and drill them all and counterbore them all. So let's go over the lathe and set it up. So here we go. I've set this little palm green milling attachment up on the cross slide. I've set these on centre up against the back of the jaw, so I should be able to get them somewhere near in the right place again, and I've set them up with the Z-squares there at the right angle. I've put a collet in with a centre drill, and I'm just going to drill them through. we're just going to finish that off with a nice sharp cutter. And I'm not even going to measure that. I'm just going to go through until I can just see a line there cleaned up and keep them all about the same, and that's going to be plenty good enough. It's only to hold a screw down. And there's the first one drilled. Well, there we go. We got 4 of these, and they're all drilled pretty close to the same. If we have a look, I'm pretty pleased with them. There were a few anxious moments, and I'm going to say probably that to date this is the most complicated setup and the most difficult thing to get all the same in this whole build. Maybe I didn't think this through far enough. Maybe I took some shortcuts. I can't think of anything at the moment that I could have done better, and they are all the same. But I really struggled to get these right, and to be honest, there's a few rejects. I ended up cutting them again and starting again. This one is a pretty good job. Drilled the hole through the wrong angle. So it's on the heart line. Instead of being that way, it's that way. So that one's not much good. This one moved. There was a bolt on the milling slide that moved. This one ended up being about 20 thou too small, so that's not much good. Apart from that, they're all pretty good and they're all the same, so that's what we're aiming for. The only real job to do now is to machine one side off and to make sure we get the right side. Machine one side off to 15 degrees and the other side off to 5 degrees. So little setups, but not a huge job. I'm going to do these in the shaper, I think. Basically just set them up to a square, machine them off, get them pretty close, try them, and probably I'm going to draw file them or something to get them the final bit if I need to. We'll see how we go, but that's the one job, and they need a little bit of rake on here so that they pull down on the job. So that's about 5 degrees, and it's not very much. So we'll do the same with that. Let's have a look at some setups. These bits aren't real easy, and out of the 5 I could have chosen that book, this was probably the most difficult one. What I've done here is just blued one side, and I've scribed a line on there. I don't know if you can see that, which is where they need to be down to, I believe, to all be the same. The one that I have done, which is this one, I've got him down to size, that's interchangeable with all of these. So if the holes are in the same spot, the others should all be interchangeable too. And probably I should be marking them all off the hole. But I think by the time you find a precision pin to go in the hole and set it all up and then mark them all square and get them all straight square this way, it's a bit of messing around. So what I'm going to do is just mark them all like this. I'm going to get them down somewhere near, and I'm just going to go really slow and try them a few times and get them all so that they work. So let's have a look when we've got them all to size. So there we go. These took most of the afternoon to get right, and they're all interchangeable and they're all the right angle. I'm really pleased with them actually. They probably just need a bit of a clean up, not very much. I'm reluctant to make or recommend that anyone makes anything like this out of bronze. It's probably really nice and do a really nice job, but it's messy. It sticks to everything. Everything's got bronze dust in it. It sticks in the fingers. And it's fairly hard work. So there's still one operation. These want a little bit, just a little bit of angle here, just so that they grip. It doesn't want to be that much, it only wants to be about a third of that, I think. So I've got a little Starrett 453 pattern maker square, or tool maker square, die maker square, whatever you want to call it. It's a nice little square, and for something like this it's just the thing. So I'm just going to use this and set these up like that, and just take a skim off until they just clean out, and that'll about do us for these. I've spent most of the afternoon messing around getting these right. They are pretty fiddly, and they took a bit of getting to this stage, but I'm going to mess around with these a little bit longer and just clean these up a little bit, and we'll have another look. So I think I'm done. We've got the 4 jaws. They've got a little angle on here and a bigger angle on there. They're all interchangeable and they're all reasonably nicely finished, I think. These screws I've got here are hardly long enough. So just today I'm going to use these, which are plated. They're not still good grade 8 bolts, but the contrast would be nicer. So there we go. actually rather like that contrast, so I think I might leave those bolts in there. And we've got 4 little hold down clamps. That's how they look. If you have a look, there's a little bit of an angle there. You see that? That's how much clamping force they've got. So from there to there. As this clamps down, goes from there, which is where it's touching, down to, so they should be good and pretty easy to not overload. I'm really pleased with them. There's a few little imperfections, but a serious amount of work in them to do them properly. On a milling machine with a bit more of a workshop style finish, they'd be a lot quicker. But getting these to this standard and to this level was a lot of work, and I'm pleased I did it. And I've learned a lot along the way. It's really a pretty nice project. So, while as tempting as it is to leave this here and not actually show them in use, and to get everyone's back up, I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is set something up and try them out on the milling machine, and we'll have a look and we'll see how they actually work. So there we go. I've gone home, handheld over here at the mill, and eventually I'll have some sort of a camera system here too, but the machine's not in use yet, so as it goes. But that's a remainder of that piece of bronze strip, and that's in there so tight that nothing's ever going to move it. It's nice and flat if we have a look. Do need to put longer grub screws in there. If we have a look, they're way down inside. So thanks for watching, guys and girls, and don't forget to like and subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Be kind to each other, and we'll be starting something else soon. I'm also going to finish that steam engine boiler, so new video out on that hopefully by the end of the week.